From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
From old to like new.
And it's like, wow, we've got a running tractor that runs and drives better than factory.
One team is showing what it takes to restore antique tractors. Almost 200 tornadoes have hit the heartland in just over 5 days. Is the end in sight to this severe weather? As new information is released about the future of sustainable aviation fuel production.
This is an all or none approach.
What it all means for farmers right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when experience meets expertise. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. We now have guidance from the Biden administration when it comes to production of sustainable aviation fuel. As we first told you yesterday, the government released its updated GREET model, or Greenhouse Gases, Regulated Emissions, and Energy Use and Technologies. And there's a lot to unpack about what it could mean for corn and soybean growers. AgDay's Michelle Rook has been digging into this, and Michelle, the rollout of the plan is getting mixed reactions.
Yeah, the SAF tax credit guidelines are disappointing to some in the biofuels industry because they're more stringent than they were hoping for. Eligibility requires either farmers change practices or the use of carbon capture. However, some groups do consider use of the GREET model as at least a partial victory. Producers of sustainable aviation fuel under the new 40B GREET model are eligible for a tax credit of $1.25 to $1.75 per gallon. To be eligible, refiners must demonstrate their fuel is 50% lower in emissions than petroleum jet fuel. For corn-based ethanol, that will require farmers bundle 3 climate-smart ag practices.
This is an all or none approach, meaning all 3 of these practices must be adopted on your corn acres in order to qualify. No-till, a cover crop, and enhanced efficiency fertilizer.
Jennings says this is too restrictive, especially as cover crops can't be used in every geography, so it won't result in the volume of SAF the administration was hoping for.
Well, we don't have any information from USDA on their estimates for how many acres of corn production in the United States have all 3 of these practices being adopted. My guess is it's very little.
Soybean oil barely qualifies for the $1.25 40B tax credit, but SAF is eligible for an additional penny per gallon for each percentage point the reduction exceeds 50%, up to 50 cents. That can be achieved for soy-based SAF by again overcoming hurdles.
In the case of soybeans, that includes using some degree of cover crops, as well as no-till practices, which are all defined by USDA.
Still, they believe the recognition of the GREET model is a victory for the future.
Do we agree with all of the conclusions in the model? Absolutely not. But do we believe it was a step in the right direction? 100%.
The new model also recognizes greenhouse gas reductions from carbon pipelines, renewable natural gas, and renewable power in combination with CSA practices.
Carbon capture and sequestration technology, which a lot of ethanol producers are making investments in as we speak, indeed is an approved technology under that model.
However, with Treasury leaving pathways under the 45Z clean fuel production tax credit going into effect on January 1st of 2025, the biofuels industry is looking ahead. So they'll be working with Treasury Department and USDA to seek greater flexibility in the future. And the sooner the better, so farmers have time to plan. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Another big information release we're following. Republican House Ag Committee leaders officially releasing their overview for a new farm bill. The plan includes increases for price loss coverage and agriculture risk coverage. There are also plans to bolster dairy programs and enhance disaster programs. When it comes to conservation, it enhances programs like the Environmental Quality Incentives Program and the Conservation Stewardship Program and modernization of the Conservation Reserve Program. To increase trade, there's a plan to expand the Market Access Program and Foreign Market Development Program. Well, nutrition, it's a big part of the bill, and it says the new bill will give access to families formerly disallowed to receive benefits and advance policies related to healthy eating. It also lists enhanced financing options for producers, more broadband connectivity to rural areas, along with funding for research and extension. There's help for specialty crops and enhanced coverage options for crop insurance. House Ag Committee leaders say a markup of the bill will take place on Thursday, May 23rd. One person died after a tornado tore through the northeastern Kansas city of Westmoreland, destroying houses, RVs, and outbuildings. 3 other people were injured. It's just the latest in a string of tornadoes over the past 5 days to hit the heartland. Since last Friday, 198 tornadoes have been reported, according to the National Weather Service, marking the second most active April for tornadoes on record in the U.S. Meteorologist Martin Lorimore joins us, and Martin, the Plains and Midwest could really use a break from this dangerous weather trend.
Yeah, we had a very busy last couple of days, had a lot of severe weather across most of the central part of the country, and sadly enough, we're still expecting a little bit more as we head in the next several days. So through our Thursday, still watching another frontal system moving across. This could bring in some of those stronger storms across the center part of the plains and stretching into even the parts of the southern plains. There's also could be the possibility of a good amount of rain. Places that have already had plenty of inches of rainfall, a lot of flood watches, flood warnings already in place, and this could exacerbate that entire situation throughout the center part of the country. This will continue its way on as we get into our Friday. This could bring in some rainfall across parts of the Great Lakes, stretching into the southeastern part of the country. We're already watching as we could see another frontal system moving through on Saturday, and another low pressure that's going to cool down the Pacific Northwest and could bring a couple bits of snowfall across those higher elevations in the Sierra Nevadas and the Cascades. So just keep a watch out if you are toward those higher elevations. Could be expecting more of that snowfall as you head into the weekend. Of course, staying much more calmer in the center part of the country. And at the end of a storm, a hopeful sign. Jay Sorg over in New Richland, Minnesota, capturing a spectacular double rainbow in his farm. Just as Jay said he was going to take a look. Well, walk back, see if he could find the pot of gold. No word yet if he found it yet. We'll have a morning forecast coming up.
In California, a great snowpack and spring snowmelt could mean more water for farmers. State and federal water agencies are announcing additional water allocations for farmers and other users. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation said it is increasing promised water deliveries from the Central Valley Project for agricultural contractors south of the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta to 40% of requested supplies. That's up 5% from last month. The California Department of Water Resources said it will increase water deliveries to 40% of requested supplies from the State Water Project. That's up 10%. Corn and soybeans fight to stay in the green on Wednesday, while cattle and hogs face some serious pricing pressure. We'll talk markets coming up next. And later, the passion of tractor restoration in Texas will meet a young man who spent hundreds of hours reclaiming this tractor's glory. Soybeans moving to the upside midweek, while much of the rest of the market was in the red. AgDay's Michelle Rook is back with more in Markets Now.
A mixed day in the grains on Wednesday with corn and soybeans higher, wheat lower. Ted Seifert is back with us. And let's talk about the row crop sector. First of all, corn market. Was that some short covering, do you think, Ted, or is the market trying to put in a little weather premium?
You know, I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think the short covering is being spurred along by maybe the necessary need or the time frame of the year, or this is the time of year where we have risk, and with all the rains that we had this past weekend and a little bit of a wetter forecast looking into the next week or so, there's reason to put in a little bit of that weather premium. And when you have funds that are on the short side of things, that also triggers them to cover some of those shorts. We closed below this cluster of moving averages that we have between the 10, the 20, and the 50-day, all within a penny of each other. We closed below that yesterday. We were below it again to start the day on Wednesday, but by the end of the day, we had ended up back above that. And so for the technical traders, the funds, in particular, that are really rather short, if we continue to close above that moving average cluster, that's going to give them more reason to want to maybe cover some of these short positions.
Soybean market, do you think we just bounced off some support there as well as in bean oil?
Yeah, absolutely. Soybeans took back about half of yesterday's losses. Soybean oil kind of leading the way because soybean oil had gotten very oversold after, multiple sharp down days into new contract lows. So a little bit of bounce there, a little bit of correction in the meal, in the oil share. And then, yeah, soybeans were allowed to kind of bounce back a little bit off of moving average support there too, sort of following along with corn. Corn was really the leader.
So wheat did set back. Was that just a routine correction, you think, or were we trading some of these rain forecasts?
We had the short covering rally. We can say that, corn only managed about 15 cents on a short covering rally, but in the meantime, wheat rallied 83 cents there until it put its highs in late last week. And now we've kind of corrected back to the 100-day moving average. So the very likely level where we would find some support, we did get below it briefly, but then ended up closing back above it. So as far as correction is concerned, mission accomplished.
Thanks for joining us. Ted Seifert, Zaner Ag Hedge. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
For professional marketing advice specifically tailored to your needs, call Zaner Ag Hedge at 312-277-0113.
Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
And for the past week, we've been seeing plenty of those severe storms across most of the nation, and now we're still seeing more of that threat level staying around. Now, as we are going through the rest couple of days, our Thursday and Friday specifically, the threat level is not super high. Noticing we're not in that red area here across the center part of the country, but this could end up spreading into some areas on that Thursday. Moving to our Friday, just a very small section as we start seeing more of a disturbance moving in across the center part of the country. But it's not just our severe weather we're watching, it's also the possibility of that flooding. Not so much on our Thursday, but as these storms begin to calm down, what we call become more stratiform, they could bring in some more of that rainfall as we get into our Thursday and Friday. So we are watching for more of that chance across, again, areas that have already seen plenty of rain. So again, that flooding potential will be there even with the amount of rain we're going to be expecting to come down the next couple of days moving to our Friday. Luckily falling down as that system makes its way out of the area. You can see, again, that same area where they're expecting the severe thunderstorms for our Friday. We'll be watching for that possibility for more of that rainfall coming down. That's going to move further to the south into Oklahoma and Texas area. So plenty of rain will be coming down over the next several days, even into our Sunday. Still looking at that flooding potential in the southern plains across Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and Texas. So plenty of areas could be seeing that rainfall in the next several days. Precipitation estimates over the next several days, again, you can see up to 1, 2, 3 inches across a lot of areas, even some places closer to 5 over the next 7 days. It's looking to be a little bit action-packed when it comes to the rainfall. You can blame this low pressure system making things a little bit on the more angled. You can see this angled side right here pushing its way down. There's that next low pressure moving in as we get into the Pacific Northwest that could bring some much cooler temperatures across some parts of the Pacific Northwest. Kingfisher, Oklahoma, no surprise here. Thunderstorms, highs in the mid-70s. Elkhorn, Nebraska, temperatures a little bit cooler. This place was hit by a tornado earlier this week. Luckily, calmer weather there. And finally, Piketon, Ohio, high 86.
Wolves continue to kill cattle in Colorado. We'll tell you about the very latest concerns from ranchers coming up next. And later, we're off to the Lone Star State to hear the story behind this classic tractor restoration today in the country. It's reported that 5 cattle have been lost in just 11 days to wolves in Colorado. That's according to a report in the Coloradan. It says there have been a total of 6 wolf depredations since April 2nd. It comes after 10 wolves were reintroduced into the state back in December. Now, one rancher telling the newspaper he and other ranchers are using non-lethal tools given to them by Colorado Parks and Wildlife to try and deter the wolves, but it doesn't solve the problem. The ranchers claim they have identified by collar number 2 wolves that were involved in all of the cattle deaths in April. The Middle Park Stock Growers Association has requested the state lethally remove those 2 wolves, but Colorado has refused that request. The U.S. House on Tuesday voting to remove the gray wolf from the endangered species list, but it may not pass in the Senate after the White House issued a statement warning the Biden administration is against the idea. Lower beef production and tighter beef supplies could be challenging for U.S. exporters. However, the U.S. Meat Export Federation is trying to expand opportunities for underutilized cuts in several international markets. And President and CEO Dan Halstrom believes the expanded opportunities for underutilized cuts will endure even as U.S. beef production rebounds.
The performance on beef was I think, a pretty good sign, because we all know production's down, will remain down for the foreseeable future. But this is really an opportunity for the industry and for USMEF in particular to work on maximizing the value of that carcass and really focusing in on some of the subprimals that might be underperforming. And we've had quite a bit of success on the different cuts within the round primal. Knuckles, insides, etc. Outside round flats, a lot of success there in places like Taiwan, Korea, even in Mexico and Central America. We've seen some success on some of these cuts. Shoulder clods, another area of the carcass. And of course, you can't forget variety meats.
Hallstrom says Mexico, the Middle East, Korea, South America, and the Caribbean have all seen growth when it comes to variety meats. Now, preserving history can be a lot of work. Up next, we're off to Texas, where the love of a historic tractor inspired hundreds of hours worth of work today in the country. There's a young man in Texas who likes to give old tractors new life. He recently restored a 1959 John Deere 730. It only took him 1,300 hours. And as the Texas Farm Bureau shows us, lots of blood, sweat, and tears.
I'm Trey Shrunk. I'm a senior at Grandview High School in Hillsboro, Texas. I'm an FFA. I also do tractor restoration. So it started with my mom. We discovered the tractor restoration, and we asked her uncle if he had a tractor, and he said, yeah, I've got one. It started with a 1945 Farmall B. After that one, I did a 5570 propane. And now I've got my 1959 John Deere 730 diesel electric start. This was the second year that they made the 730, and this was the third generation of the row crop diesels that John Deere made and produced. It held the fuel record for 27 years being the most fuel efficient tractor, so it's got some history to it. My dad learned how to drive on a 730. We actually found that tractor later on, and we're planning on restoring it. But this specific one's optioned a little bit weird. It doesn't have a Roll-O-Matic front end, and it's got disc rear hubs, and it's an electric start. It's also a diesel. I wanted to do a diesel from the start because everybody likes seeing an older tractor blow a little bit of smoke while it's pulling something. So just a combination of things that I haven't done before and found an interest in. What goes into a restoration project? Everything. I started this project back in July of 23. I didn't have a life for the past 6-7 months of the year. Right now I'm sitting at about 1,300 hours. This one, the first reduction gear cover had a crack in it. The fenders, I knew they needed to be replaced. All the electric had to be gone through. From there, it was just tear everything down, get it cleaned up, get it taken apart, replace the things that are broken, new bearings, go through the engine. It goes from there to painting, and then everything gets put together. You see that it's mechanically sound, and from there it starts with the electrical. We're making sure everything is grounded, and then you can start trying to run the tractor and tune it and get everything set just right, make the adjustments that you undid whenever you're taking it apart. The best part of the process of the restoration has to be getting to hear it run again. Looking back at it, it's kind of crazy because you blink and it's like, wow, we've got a running tractor that runs and drives better than factory. So it's a sense of accomplishment that nothing compares to. So I got second place at Fort Worth Livestock Show and Rodeo, and then I got third at San Angelo, and then I got grand champion at San Antonio and Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. It's like showmanship for livestock, but with tractors. Tractor restoration is just part of the ag industry. I mean, without tractors, we wouldn't have agriculture as we know it today, and it's just a piece of history. I find mechanics very fun and interesting to look at how engineers were thinking back then. Looking back in history helps us to keep up with good designs. College will be next. I'm going to go to Tarleton for industrial technology. So doing the tractors, I get to learn some good engineering principles. Some people sell them, some people keep them. Me personally, I've kept all three of them, and I really don't plan to sell any of them. because I've got so much work into them, so much time and money. And with the 730 specifically, it's so far been the pinnacle of my career. And it's just, you walk out to the barn and it's, wow, I did that.
All right, and thanks to the Texas Farm Bureau for sharing that story with us. You can bet Machinery Pete loves it too. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.